I had lost myself for 3 years. I had been very sick and I didn't know why, and no one could tell me why, and I had gone down the rabbit hole of doctor's appointments and medication, and basically told I was depressed, and this is what I needed to do to fix it, or not really even fix it, but to survive or live in the world, and do my job properly. And so basically my story is I played college sports. I've always been a very active and healthy person. I graduated from school and got a job teaching tennis, so an active job, and I was very happy and I loved my job. I had a great boyfriend at the time, and I was living alone, and I've always been very healthy, and I was a vegan for, at that point, 7 years, and I got meningitis, viral meningitis, what a lot of people like to remind me of as a, quote, non-deadly illness, so something that I don't feel was taken very seriously. So I was hospitalized for 4 days and then sent home. I was out of work for 3 months. I had a lot of problems. I had headaches and sleep paralysis and balance issues and insomnia, and I couldn't live on my own, and I just kind of white-knuckled myself through it, and I didn't really go to the doctor because I thought this is just what people with viral meningitis put up with after they're sick. And so I just kind of cried and went to work and decided this is kind of how I'm going to be from now on. I'm going to be tired and I'm not going to be myself, and that was really hard. I was really scared, and there was really no one that could help me. I mean, my family was amazing. My now husband, he basically just kept telling me, like, believe that you're going to be better and you will. And to some level, he was actually the most insightful out of anyone, or even any doctor I had seen prior to reading about Kelly Brogan. And so after about 2 years, I had been getting worse. I had been sleeping for like 10 hours at night, and then working in the morning, couple lessons and clinics, and then coming home and sleeping another 3 hours, and then going back to work and coming back home and falling asleep at 8 again, and just basically wasn't able to live properly. Couldn't give my husband any attention. I couldn't do daily activities. I couldn't even go to the grocery store without feeling like that was extremely exhausting and difficult. I couldn't work out, which before I got sick, I had just finished my first marathon, so extreme endurance seems to be a mode of happiness for me, and I was unable to even do my job. So needless to say, I was not myself, and I had no desire to work out. I had what most doctors thought was just clinical depression. So that's when I scheduled a doctor's appointment, and she made me wait for an hour and a half, and I was seen for a total of 8 or 9 minutes, and she made me take a depression test and put me on a lot of medication, antidepressants, nerve medication, anti-anxiety. So I was on so many medicines, which I can't believe I was talked into that, because I wouldn't even take Advil before. I was such a naturalist, and I guess I was just extremely desperate, very desperate, because I didn't think that I would ever find myself again, and I really I was really happy when I was right before I got sick. So I was just extremely willing to try anything to get me back to that. And I trusted this doctor. And so I took the medication, and it helped a little bit. I think that was probably placebo. I was just like willing it to help. And so that helped some, but I still had the same symptoms I was having before, like extreme itching, which is super random, but I would itch the back of my neck. Like I thought that there was something deeply wrong with me because there was no rash. I thought it was, probably was in my head. I still don't know to this day. I just would get it at night and I would not be able to stop. And I would go 4 days without sleeping, and I was extremely irritable. And the medication, the gabapentin, helped me sleep, which I think in turn helped a lot of my other symptoms. But then I started having some major neurological issues. I think that was due to the medication because I never had it before I was on them. And that consisted of when they upped my Prozac and upped my gabapentin intake. After a little bit of being on them, I had extreme paranoia. I went to the movies and I thought everyone was looking at me, which I am very normal. And that scared me pretty bad because my husband was confirming that that was not true. And I had an incident where I thought somebody was in my apartment for an hour. I hid in a corner like I had lost my mind, which I guess I did, and thus calling my husband, and no one was there. So I kind of ignored it because I was embarrassed and I was scared. And then I had what I like to call big incident, which pushed me to be truly fearful and stop all medication. I came home one day in the middle of the day to let my dogs out, and I turned on the light to my bedroom, and I guess I had what I like to call a violent hallucination where I saw my husband stabbed to death on our bed, and it was extremely vivid, and I still sometimes think it's real, even though I know it's not. One day I finally told my mom, and I couldn't stop crying, and so she immediately told me I needed to stop seeing that doctor. And so I did, and I stopped all medication because I just didn't know what to do. And so after work that day, my husband took me to the bookstore because I love to read, even though I wasn't able to because of my neurological problems. I would get overwhelmed very easily, but it just took me a long time, so that was okay. I just took a long time, still read. But he said, let's go find you a book. Like, you love to read, you love to study. Surely there's something that is natural and for anxiety and for depression and just basically general brain health that we can look at and construct a better plan than pharmaceuticals. And so I was looking through a bunch of books, and then he came up to me with A Mind of Your Own, Kelly Brogan, and and he said, this is perfect for you. It is for women, first of all, and it's about getting off pharmaceuticals and finding yourself again after having anxiety and depression, which is what I had developed through my whole experience and my brain injury. And so I said, sure, why not? Let's buy it today, and I'm going to read it. And so I read it in like 2 days, even though I had a really hard time. I was dedicated to sitting down and studying it, and plus I knew immediately that it was exactly what I wanted, and it vibed with me perfectly. And so I ate it up essentially, and I never looked back. But I did stay vegan, which I think her book helped me a ton. First of all, it gave me a sense of security that there was somebody out there that believed I was ill, and didn't make me feel embarrassed about it. basically gave me a general positive support system, even through a book. Gave me a sense that there was a community of people just like me, whether it be through illness or just life circumstance or PTSD. It didn't matter. I just knew that there were people who were struggling, and I think that was more than enough to make me feel less alone, which is huge. So I never took a pill again after that. I started doing yoga. I changed my diet to an anti-inflammatory, but I did not start eating meat until I listened to her podcast on Joe Rogan. I'm a huge Joe Rogan fan. My husband and I both listen to the majority of his podcasts while I run or bike or walk at that point. And so I had been getting better and better after getting off all the medication and getting on an anti-inflammatory diet. And I think just by general positivity, I had felt a lot more healthy and more like myself. And I just believed that I was going to get better, which I think was a huge part of that. Before, I just thought, this is how I am and I'm going to accept it. And at that point, I decided that I was going to get better. Whether it was going to be a year or 2 years, it didn't matter. I was going to get better. And so after listening to her podcast on Joe Rogan, I decided after being 10 years vegan that I was going to start eating red meat again, which was pretty crazy because when you're a vegan for 10 years, you identify as vegan, your family identifies you as a certain way, your friends, the people who like to say, I told you so, still say it, even though they know you're sick and you're doing it for health reasons. They like to bring that up, like, I told you eating meat was good for you. But anyways, none of that mattered because this was my own personal journey and I didn't really care what people thought. And so Dr. Kelly Brogan really convinced me that it's worth a try, and I'm open-minded, so why not? And so I've been eating meat and following the Mind of Your Own protocol for about 6 months now. And in 1 week, I'm going to complete my first marathon since being sick, Austin Marathon, which I'm super excited about. I had felt amazing training for it. I have not been sick for 1 day while in the program, which is almost sometimes hard for me to believe. I keep having fear that it's going to come back, and that's something that's what I'm working on right now, is not being scared every time I get a headache that I'm getting sick again and that I'm going to be depressed and chronically ill again. Just accepting that it's part of life and you will be sick on certain days. It doesn't mean that you're going to be sick for a long period of time. If you're struggling, if you feel like you're never ever going to be the same and that's depressing to you and scary and lonely, and you feel like no one understands, not even your family and your closest friends, there's a lot of us that get it. And there's a lot of us that can tell you that it gets better. Mine happened to be through changing my whole lifestyle. I was healthy before, but this is just totally different kind of health. It's spiritual, it's mental, it's dietary, and it's a full commitment. And so if you're committed and you really, really work hard, it's achievable. So I really hope that my story helps someone out there, and I just want to say thanks because I'm back.